Lonnie Bunch.
Today, a dream too long deferred is a dream no longer. What a grand and glorious day to open a museum that will not just tell of a people's journey, but also of a nation's story. It's hard for me to believe that we are at this moment where we, as a nation, will finally fulfill the expectations and hopes of so many generations who believed and labored for a presence on the National Mall that would help all Americans realize how much they've been shaped, informed, and made better by the African American experience. We are here at this moment because of the commitment and support of so many of you here and thousands of others of corporations, individuals, and foundations who believe that the time had come for the creation of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. The diversity of the funding that has supported this endeavor speaks volumes about the generosity and goodwill of America. We are so moved by the more than 100,000 people who have become members of the museum, who show me their card and paid $25. I gotta tell you, we are at this moment because of the backing of the United States Congress and the White House. I cannot thank President and Mrs. Obama and President and Mrs. Bush enough for all that you've done to bring this museum to fruition. It truly took an institution to build a national museum. We are indebted to the Smithsonian Institution, whose leadership from the Regents through former Secretaries Larry Small and Wayne Clough to the current Secretary David Skorton have never wavered in their support of this museum. A crucial component that brought us to this moment is the staff of the museum. Forgive the sports analogy, but they are the dream team. They are better than the '61 Yankees and the '85 Bears. You honor them by your presence today because they are the best. But I have to tell you, the foundation, the bedrock of this museum has been the council, our board of trustees. Under the leadership of Dick Parsons and Linda Johnson Rice and Ken Chenault, they have guided all aspects of the museum's development. They helped to steady a shaky director, and they used their considerable influence to ensure a successful campaign. I'd like to ask the council to stand and be recognized. Without your effort, there would not be a museum. Obviously, others played a key role in this endeavor. The first was the Presidential Commission, co-chaired by Robert Wright and Claudine Brown, which established the blueprint for the museum. Also essential was the Scholarly Advisory Committee that was chaired by the great John Hope Franklin, who provided much of the intellectual guidance for the museum. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the architectural creativity that's behind us of the Freeland Audubon Smith collaboration. Thank you. David. This collaboration created by Max Bond benefited from Phil Freeland's leadership and the wonderful design of David Adjaye. So thank you all so much for what you've given us. And we're fortunate to have exhibits designed by Ralph Applebaum and Associates. But I want to thank all the amazing workers who in the process of construction soon realized that this was their building, this was their history as well. And I need to take a personal moment and thank my family so I can go home. They have lived with every moment of this job for more than a decade. My mother is here, thank you, Mom. My wife, Maria, my daughters, Katie and Sarah Chutley, and the love of my life, my granddaughter, Harper Grace. Thank you all so much. It means a lot to me. Recently, I was asked by a journalist, did we really believe we could create a museum that had been in the planning for more than a century? How could we not believe when we can dip into the reservoir that is African American history? We believe because the enslaved dreamed a world of freedom that once seemed impossible. We believe because Ella Baker and Fannie Lou Hamer had faith in an America that did not believe in them. How could we not believe when hearing the words of Ida B. Wells or Malcolm or Martin? We had to believe because of the audacity and the beauty of Jackie Robinson's Stealing Home. And how could we not believe when hundreds of families in this country opened their houses, entrusted us with their artifacts, their stories? We believe because George W. Bush said this museum must be on the National Mall. Thank you. And we believe because a senator from Chicago told us, yes, we can. But today is bittersweet for me when I think about those who began this endeavor with us, but who are no longer here. We miss John Hope Franklin and Clem Price and Claudine Brown and Evelyn Lieberman and Max Bond. We miss Kinshasa Bond and my dad. But whenever I look at the museum, I don't simply see steel, glass, and concrete. I feel the spirit, the strengths of those who went before and upon whose shoulders we stand. It is those memories that breathe life into this building. Because when I look at this museum, I realize it's a clarion call to remember. To remember not just the well-known, but also those famous only to their family, whose lives in quiet ways shaped this nation. We remember so we can ponder the pain of slavery, segregation, and second-class citizenry, but we also find the resiliency, the faith, the hope, the joy that is so much a part of the African American community. We remember to draw sustenance, inspiration, courage from a people's commitment to help America, to challenge America, to live up to its stated ideals. We remember not out of nostalgia, but out of a country's need, especially today, for the contextualization and contemporary clarity that comes from understanding an unvarnished history. And maybe, just maybe, that understanding can help America find a bit of healing and reconciliation. We remember so all who encounter the museum will understand American history through an African American lens and realize just how central African American history and culture is to America's sense of self. 11 years ago, we began this trek full of trepidation and motivated by a desire to complete a journey that began 100 years ago. So for 11 years, we have dreamed, prayed, toiled for this day. But what kept us going was the way people stopped us on the street just to say thank you. 2 months ago, I was standing on the corner here just before sunrise because I wanted to see how the building would look. And there was an elderly man standing on the corner. When I turned in his direction, he was bent over, sobbing. I asked if he was sick, and all he could say to me was that he was so proud that he lived long enough to see the birth of this museum. So on behalf of that man, I thank you. I thank you because of your support for this museum. You've given two gifts. The first is a gift to America. Thanks to your commitment and belief, we've guaranteed that as long as there's an America, this museum will educate, engage, and ensure a fuller story of our country will be told on the National Mall. But you've also quite candidly given a gift to me. I am so honored and humbled to be part of a group of people to build this museum. Thanks to you, I've had the time of my life. Ultimately, this museum, we believe there is nothing more powerful than a people, than a nation steeped in its history. And there is nothing more noble than honoring all of our ancestors by remembering. So let me conclude by simply saying, welcome home.